Feel a little frazzled? Take a break. Time for another fun size art lesson. You guessed it, part two of brush care, saving those ruined brushes. There are plenty of brush cleaners you can buy, and most of them work perfectly well as long as you use them immediately, or at least in a reasonable time frame. But let's be honest, that doesn't always happen. We forget about a brush or we get pulled away and we think, I'll come back to it in just a little bit. And then we don't. ADHD. This is to attempt to revive the forgotten and beat up brushes. The favorite ones, the ones we paid way too much for and aren't willing to toss without attempting some sort of resuscitation. I've already made an attempt at cleaning all these brushes with various cleaners with no such luck, so they are being sacrificed for experiment.
I'm going to try some methods I've been reading about to see what might save some of these brushes. This test is in no way scientific, but I think it will give us a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't. I'm using identical glass jars for each set, and I'm using an assortment of brushes for each solvent. Yes, there are more aggressive cleaners I could try, but I also want to be conscious of toxic fumes and general studio safety. We're not going to sacrifice our health to save a brush. The first one is something I just recently heard about: soaking brushes in vegetable oil. I'm only pouring a tiny bit in because I only want the bristles to soak, not the ferrule or handle of the brush. Normally, I would say not to leave your brushes standing in liquid like this at all, but these brushes are already toast without some major intervention. Next up is plain old mineral spirits. This is what I already used to rinse my oil brushes, so I'm not super hopeful for this one, but the internet keeps telling me it'll work. The internet is also full of lies, so we'll see. I've also been told to try soaking in white vinegar, which I would have never thought to try. Worth a shot on these rock-hard bristles. And lastly is a combination of hydrogen peroxide and Blue Dawn dish soap. Dawn is already one of my go-to solutions for cleaning dirty brushes in general, but I'm not sure it can break up the paint if it's already dried on. Maybe the peroxide will bring the magic. While these brushes sit for a few hours, I'm going to try out something I was told fixes frayed brush heads. These aren't caked in old paint, they're just having really bad hair days. Boiling water alone is never going to remove impossibly dry paint from a brush, but I'm just hoping for some reshaping action. I saw this theoretical saving grace online and decided to give it a try. I've boiled some water in the kettle and poured it into a cup. Might as well make some tea while I'm at it. I tried this on several brushes, from natural hair to synthetic and bristle, and it honestly didn't do much. It did seem to help this one synthetic liner brush a bit, but I really couldn't tell a difference with the rest of them. If anything, I think the high temp water is more likely to melt the glue that holds the bristles and make them loose. You may have more luck with this method than I did, but I'm honestly pretty unimpressed. Well, it's wash time. I'm starting out with the one soaking in vegetable oil. I ended up needing more Dawn to wash away all the greasy vegetable oil on these brushes. This one synthetic brush had dried acrylic on it, and I'm pleasantly surprised. More of the paint came off and the bristles have softened again. For the dried oil brushes, it didn't do much. One that wasn't horribly caked did improve a bit, so I can at least use this brush for something else again, but the other two were too far gone. Still hard as a rock. Next rinse group is mineral spirits, and it's about what I expected. Even with more soap and various cleaning tools, no hardened paint budged from these. Mineral spirits is still my first line of defense to rinse oil brushes immediately, but once it's dried, it can't revive them. Next is the Dawn and peroxide. First thing I'm noticing is that this is the only jar that the liquid has noticeably changed colors. It was blue when I first poured it in, but it's more of a milky green now. As I'm rinsing, I can tell that the brushes are much more pliable than they were at first, and the paint has loosened. Now, normally I wouldn't advise taking a razor blade to your brushes, but I can tell that there is a great deal of paint that wants to come off these bristles now. If you try this, please scrape slowly and away from you. As you can see, hunks of paint have come out and there's only a few little bristle pieces in it. It's not fully restored to a like-new condition, but it is drastically improved, and I feel like I can now get another few paintings out of these brushes. Last rinse group is the white vinegar, and I'm definitely surprised in a couple ways. The paint has loosened and the bristles are noticeably softer, but a couple of the ferrules have kind of corroded in a weird way. They definitely weren't like this before, and they weren't even remotely close to being submerged. It looks kind of funky, but I really don't think it will affect the function of the brush at all. Since all of the brushes soaked in various cleaners for several hours, I need to give them some extra care. They've all been thoroughly rinsed and dried, and now I'm conditioning it and reshaping them like I normally do. For the ones that didn't make any improvement, I may try them in one of the other cleaners another day, or they may just be permanently retired to some future craft project, or the trash.
So yeah, some are totally saved and some are totally toast. Remember, the best method for saving your brushes is prevention. Don't let paint dry on them, don't let them soak in harsh solvents, and give them a good wash and condition now and then. See this video. Hopefully one or more of these techniques will save some of your brushes. Let me know what else you're looking for help with. Leave me a comment down below. I'm happy to help. Have a great weekend. Happy painting. Obligatory Picasso appearance.